In the culture of Capitol Hill, the House of Representatives suffers from a permanent and irreparable, actually a constitutional inferiority complex, because the Senate has a superpower that the House of Representatives does not have. And that superpower is more powerful than the presidential power when those two powers come into conflict over presidential appointments. Only the United States Senate has the power to confirm presidential appointees. The House of Representatives has no vote on nominations to federal judgeships, including the Supreme Court. The House has no vote on nominations for cabinet positions. For 235 years, the House of Representatives has had to sadly and powerlessly sit by and watch across the campus as the United States Senate made the final decision about all of those presidential appointments to the cabinet, to the Supreme Court, to every federal judgeship. And now, for the very first time in history, the most important vote in a confirmation process belongs to a member of the House of Representatives. It only takes one vote in the House of Representatives to destroy Matt Gaetz's nomination for Attorney General. Only 5 members of the House of Representatives have the power to cast that vote. They are the 5 Republican members of the House Ethics Committee. Unlike other House committees that are all heavily imbalanced in favor of the majority party, the House Ethics Committee membership is divided equally between the parties, 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. All 5 Democrats on the House Ethics Committee will vote in favor of releasing the House Ethics Committee investigative report on former Congressman Matt Gaetz when the committee meets again on December 5th, after an apparently difficult meeting that the committee had today. After today's meeting, the Republican chairman of the committee said, quote, "There was not an agreement by the committee to release the report." And that statement provoked this extraordinary scene in the hallway outside of the House Ethics Committee.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have just come. I'm Susan Wild. I'm the ranking member on the Ethics Committee. We just concluded a 2-hour meeting of the Ethics Committee, and it was not my intention to make any comment. I walked out of this committee without making one and walked back to my office, but it has since come to my attention that, in fact, we had agreed that we were not going to discuss what had transpired at the meeting, but it has come to my attention that the chairman has since betrayed the process by disclosing our deliberations within moments after walking out of the committee. And he has implied that there was an agreement of the committee not to disclose the report. That is an untrue, to the extent that that suggests that the committee was in agreement or that we had a consensus on that, that is inaccurate. And I will say that a vote was taken. As many of you know, this committee is evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans, 5 Dems, 5 Republicans, which means that in order to affirmatively move something forward, somebody has to cross party lines and vote with the other side, which happens a lot, by the way, and we often vote unanimously. That did not happen in today's vote, and I do not want the American public or anyone else to think that Mr. Guest's characterization of what transpired today would be some sort of indication that the committee had unanimity or consensus on this issue, not to release the report. That would be an inaccurate portrayal, and nobody should take that from what they have heard so far. There was no consensus on this issue. We did agree that we would reconvene as a committee on December 5th to further consider this matter.
So that's the top Democrat on the House Ethics Committee, Susan Wild. And that scene in the hallway led to this response from the Republican chairman.
She said you betrayed the process, betrayed the committee by saying that.
That's her choice. That's what she feels. And you can ask her if she would like to comment. And I made the only free statement that I can make on the news today, which was we did not make.
It's hard to find out what happens in closed-door committee meetings like that, but what we have is John Bresnahan of Punchbowl News reporting, quote, Ethics Committee held several votes, Ray Gates' report. Released the report, which is not final yet, as is. This deadlocked on partisan lines. Committee then voted to complete report. This was a majority, but not unanimous. There will be another meeting in December. So, if John Bresnahan's reporting is accurate, the committee voted 5-5, 5 Democrats versus 5 Republicans, to release the report, with the Democrats voting in favor of releasing the report. A tie vote in the Ethics Committee accomplishes nothing and does not move that issue forward, so that does not release the report. John Bresnahan reports that the committee then voted to complete the report, and that vote was a majority, but not a unanimous vote. And so what that means is at least one Republican voted with the Democrats to complete the report. It could also mean that more than one Republican voted to complete the report. It could mean that only one Republican voted against completing the report. When the committee meets again on December 5th, the Gates report will presumably be completed, and the Democrats will certainly call for another vote on releasing that report. And then perhaps one of the Republicans who voted today to complete the report might then vote to release the report. And so that Ethics Committee vote on December 5th will be the decisive vote on Matt Gaetz' nomination for Attorney General if one Republican, just one Republican, votes to release that report. Because as you heard on this program last night, the evidence in that report is not survivable by any presidential nominee for any office at any point in the history of this country.
And she was invited to that party by Joel Greenberg, vis-a-vis her friend, who had met Joel Greenberg on Seeking Arrangement.
Joel Greenberg, who's now in prison.
That's correct, yeah. And when she arrived, she testified that she had sex with Representative Gates within minutes of arriving.
Within minutes of
arriving, yes. She was introduced to him. Representative Gates took her upstairs into a room, and they had sex in one of the bedrooms upstairs.
And was that a prearranged pay for sex encounter?
So that situation was a situation that Joel Greenberg would have arranged ahead of time. There was no payment from Representative Gates at that particular time. My clients testified that the payments came later on at separate events. And
after that, in that setting, is that when your client sees the 17-year-old girl?
So it was at that same event back in July of 2017. At another time later on in the party, she was walking outside towards the pool area. She looked to her right, and she saw her friend, who was 17 at the time, having sex with Representative Gates.
And your client knew that that girl is 17?
That's right. She was aware that her friend was under 17 as they went to high school together.
They went to high school together. And that 17-year-old was still in high school?
That's right.
The evidence in the Ethics Committee report will show that Matt Gaetz was paying for sex with multiple women. How much money was involved in the paying for sex with your two clients?
So when my clients testified to the House earlier this year, back in April and May, the House actually acquired records, presumably by subpoena, from Representative Gates. The amounts that were provided on the screen during their testimony by the House was, for one client, it was over $6,000 in payments directly from Representative Gates to my client, and the other amount was a little over $4,000 directly from Representative Gates to my client.
So you're sitting there with your clients as they testify, one at a time, and you discover then up on a screen in that hearing room that the Ethics Committee has all these Venmo payments and other forms of payment, electronic payment, from Matt Gaetz to your client. They're just staring at the amount of money that he's paid them.
We were actually surprised because the numbers that we had thought was actually lower. The girls didn't, of course, keep records. We were provided numbers in a civil, related civil case that Representative Dorwith brought against Joel Greenberg and the minor for defamation. And so we thought the number was actually lower, and the House investigation was much more thorough, and they uncovered payments that we were not aware of. And so the investigation obviously was incredibly thorough. And so basically the House went through line by line and asked my clients, what was this transaction for? What was that for? And kind of cross-referenced their notes and looked at, okay, well, yes, this payment was for sex on this event. This was for this particular event, and so on.
No nominee can survive that kind of evidence, that kind of testimony. That lawyer, Joel Leppert, represents only 2 of the witnesses who testified to the House Ethics Committee. But you know that they were women in similar situations to your clients, women being paid for sex or involved in sex at these kinds of parties?
I wasn't present for the testimony, but I have spoken with other lawyers, and that's my understanding.
No nomination can survive that kind of evidence provided under oath by those witnesses in a House Ethics Committee investigation. And so the Trump strategy for confirming Matt Gaetz is all about keeping that House Ethics Committee report hidden, never letting anyone see it. Everyone knows the day that committee report is released is the end of the Gaetz nomination. And so Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz are hoping that that day never comes. We now know that that day won't come before December 5th. And in the meantime, pieces of evidence from the committee investigation are emerging, including this graphic that the New York Times obtained that shows lines indicating payments made directly and indirectly to women for sex by Matt Gaetz and his best friend at the time, Joel Greenberg, who is now in federal prison after pleading guilty to sex trafficking as a result of the federal criminal investigation that produced that graphic and is represented in that actual graphic. The New York Times reports that the House Ethics Committee obtained that graphic and other evidence from the federal criminal investigation, some of the other exhibits that were used in that federal criminal investigation. And that material from the federal investigation is no doubt included in the House Ethics Committee report that Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz and the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, are now desperately trying to suppress. And it just takes one vote, just one Republican member of the House Ethics Committee. And those members are Republican Chairman Michael Guest of Mississippi, Congressman David Joyce of Ohio, Congressman John Rutherford of Florida, Congressman Andrew Garbarino of New York, and Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach of Minnesota. It only takes one of them. New York Congressman Andrew Garbarino represents a heavily Republican area of Long Island.
Congressman Andrew Garbarino delivers for Long Island, a leader in the fight to restore property tax deductions. From Massapequa to Mastic, Andrew Garbarino gets stuff done for Long Island.
I'm Andrew Garbarino, and I approve this message.
Andrew Garbarino did not approve the messages that he discovered in the Ethics Committee investigation of his neighboring Republican congressman from Long Island, George Santos. On the day after the Ethics Committee released its report on George Santos, when Republican Ethics Committee Chairman Michael Guest filed a resolution to expel George Santos from the House of Representatives, Congressman Garbarino said, "The Botox thing really did shock me. And also the immediate transfer of funds from one bank to another after he got people to donate, and also that money ended up in his personal bank account." The Botox thing shocked him. The immediate transfer of funds shocked him. Imagine how shocked Congressman Andrew Garbarino was when he was looking at that FBI chart of the immediate transfer of funds from Matt Gaetz to the women represented in this chart who were being paid for sex in those transfers of funds. Congressman Andrew Garbarino didn't ask for this. He didn't ask for the superpower to destroy a nomination for Attorney General. No one gets elected to the House of Representatives and asks to be on the House Ethics Committee. Within the culture of the Congress, it is considered the least desirable assignment you can get. No one wants to police their colleagues, but someone has to do it, and the assignment usually goes to junior members like Andrew Garbarino, who don't have the power or the seniority to get the more desirable committee assignments. That's how you end up on the Ethics Committee in Congress. But history has taken a turn in Andrew Garbarino's direction, and so he will decide on December 5th if the testimony about Matt Gaetz having sex with a 17-year-old girl in the state of Florida, where the age of consent is 18, is that more shocking to Andrew Garbarino than George Santos's Botox. On December 5th, Andrew Garbarino can decide whether the immediate transfer of funds that Matt Gaetz was doing, as the evidence shows he was doing for sex, is more shocking to him than the immediate transfer of funds for self-enrichment that George Santos was engaged in. Between now and December 5th, the pressure to release the House Ethics Committee report will grow every day. It only takes one Republican vote on that committee to release that report, just one vote. According to John Bresnahan's reporting about what happened in that secret meeting of the Ethics Committee today, at least one Republican voted against even completing the report. And if that reporting is true, there is at least one Republican who doesn't even want to complete the report. But it also means there is at least one Republican who does want to complete the report, who wants to do the right thing and complete the report. That Republican, or those Republicans who voted today to complete the Ethics Committee report, will on December 5th have the chance to decide whether to try to hide the Ethics Committee report forever from their constituents and from the country and from the United States Senate, or whether to show their work to the United States senators who will have the final vote on whether Matt Gaetz will be the next Attorney General of the United States. Everyone knows about Matt Gaetz. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin served in the House of Representatives with Matt Gaetz before moving up to the Senate. He has done a few interviews this week in which he has appeared to at first have opposed the Gaetz nomination and then suggested that his mind was still open on the nomination. And tonight, Senator Mullin is now quoted in the Washington Post saying, "I think it's an extremely difficult path. In fact, I just don't see a path forward at this point." And here is what Senator Mullin said a year ago about Matt Gaetz.
This is a guy that the media didn't give a time of day to after he was accused of sleeping with an underage girl. And there's a reason why no one in the conference came and defended him, because we had all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had walked away of the girls that he had slept with. He'd brag about how he would crush ED medicine and chase it with an energy drink so he could go all night. This is obviously before he got married. And so when that accusation came out, no one defended him.